The desert sun was setting behind jagged mountains, casting long shadows over the dry, dusty land. The air was warm but heavy, and the occasional gust of wind carried fine grains of sand across the barren landscape. Two Apache sisters, Maria and Anna, walked slowly along a narrow trail, their feet crunching over the coarse sand. They had been traveling for days, escaping from the chaos of a raid that had swept through their village. The world beyond their home was unfamiliar, filled with dangers they could barely imagine, yet they pressed forward, guided by hope and a determination to survive. The sisters had learned from an early age that life in the desert was harsh and unforgiving. Their father had taught them to ride horses and hunt small animals for food, while their mother had shown them how to find water in the dry riverbeds and how to read the signs of the land. But nothing could have prepared them for the fear that now followed them like a shadow, the fear of being caught without shelter as night fell. Maria, the elder of the two, led the way. Her eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of civilization. "Anna," she whispered, "do you see anything? A house, a camp, anyone?" Anna shook her head, her dark hair tangled and dusty from their journey. "Nothing yet. But we have to keep going. The sun is almost gone." Their hope was rewarded when they spotted a small ranch in the distance. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and the faint sounds of cattle could be heard. The sight of the house brought a mixture of relief and caution. They had learned that humans could be as dangerous as the wild animals in the desert, especially strangers. As they approached, the rancher stepped outside. He was a tall man with a weathered face and hands calloused from years of labor. His eyes were sharp, scanning the sisters as they stopped a few feet away, wary but desperate. "Can we stay for the night?" Maria asked softly, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. "We just need a place to rest. We won't cause any trouble." The rancher looked at them closely. He could see their exhaustion, their dusty clothes, and the way they clutched each other's hands. But instead of offering kindness, his expression twisted into something that made both sisters uneasy. "You want shelter," he said slowly. "I can give you a place to sleep, but there's a price." The sisters froze. The words were strange and confusing, and they didn't fully understand what the man meant at first. Maria tightened her grip on Anna's hand, a protective instinct kicking in. "We don't have anything to pay," she said, her voice firmer now. "We only ask for a safe place to stay." The rancher chuckled, a low, unsettling sound. "A price isn't always gold or silver," he said. He stepped closer, and the sisters instinctively took a step back. The tension in the air was heavy, and the desert seemed to fall silent around them. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She had heard stories from other travelers about people in the towns nearby, about those who took advantage of strangers. She looked at her sister, seeking guidance, and Maria gave a slight shake of her head. They had to think carefully. Any wrong move could put them in danger. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rancher studied the sisters, perhaps deciding whether to force them or let them go. Maria, aware that hesitation could be dangerous, tried another approach. She bowed slightly, showing respect. "Please, sir," she said, "we only need shelter for the night. We are travelers, and we mean no harm. We can help with chores, fetch water, tend the animals. Anything you need, we can do." The rancher's eyes narrowed, and he stroked his beard thoughtfully. He seemed to consider her offer, though there was a shadow of doubt in his gaze. The desert wind shifted, rattling the wooden boards of the ranch. The sisters could feel the tension in the air like static electricity. Finally, the rancher spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "I'll tell you what. You can stay, but you must follow my rules. Obey what I say, and nothing will happen to you. Disobey, and you'll regret it." Maria and Anna exchanged a quick glance, relief washing over them despite the unease. They nodded in agreement. "We will follow your rules," Maria said. "We are grateful for your help." The rancher led them to a small, simple room at the back of the house. It had a bed, a wooden table, and a small window that looked out onto the desert. The sisters' eyes widened at the sight of a roof over their heads, walls that protected them from the cold night air, and a place to rest their tired bodies. "Here," he said, gesturing to the bed. "You can stay here for the night. But remember my warning. No tricks, no running off. You are safe only if you obey." The sisters nodded silently, grateful for the shelter but aware that the tension had not fully lifted. They unpacked their few belongings and sat quietly on the edge of the bed. Maria looked at Anna, and they both understood that they had survived the first challenge of the day, but there was still much to face. That evening, the sisters helped with chores, fetching water from a nearby well and feeding the animals in the barn. They worked quietly, careful not to draw unnecessary attention, and found small moments to share a smile or a word of encouragement. Even in the midst of fear, their bond as sisters gave them strength. As night fell, the desert outside became quiet, except for the occasional howl of a distant coyote. The sisters lay on the bed, listening to the sounds of the ranch and the wind outside. Sleep was hard to come by, their minds filled with memories of their village, the journey they had undertaken, and the dangers that might still be ahead. Maria whispered to Anna, "We must be strong. Whatever happens, we stick together. Nothing can break us if we are careful." Anna nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility but also a sense of determination. "I'm not afraid," she said, though her voice betrayed a hint of worry. "We will get through this." The night seemed endless, and the sisters took turns keeping watch, listening for any sign of trouble. The desert was a strange mix of beauty and danger, and they had learned to respect it. Every sound, every shadow could mean safety or danger. By dawn, they had survived the first night in the rancher's home. Though they were exhausted, they felt a small sense of accomplishment. They had faced fear, relied on their wits, and found temporary refuge. Yet both knew that the journey ahead would be just as challenging, and perhaps even more dangerous. As the first rays of sunlight painted the desert in shades of gold and red, the sisters prepared for the day ahead. They would need to gather food, plan their route, and remain alert to any threats. Their experience at the ranch had taught them that survival depended not only on courage, but on wisdom, patience, and the ability to read people as carefully as they read the land. For Maria and Anna, the desert was no longer just a place of fear. It was a test of their strength, their bond, and their determination to survive against all odds. And as they stepped outside, feeling the warmth of the sun on their faces, they knew that they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The story of that first encounter at the ranch would stay with them forever, a reminder of the dangers of the world and the courage it took to navigate it. Though the future was uncertain, they faced it together, united by blood, by trust, and by the unbreakable bond of sisterhood. The sun rose high over the desert, painting the ranch in warm hues of orange and gold. Maria and Anna had spent a restless night, listening to the creaking of the wooden floors and the occasional low murmur from the rancher. Despite the unease, they were grateful for the roof over their heads and the chance to rest. But as the morning light filtered through the window, the sisters knew that staying at the ranch could not last forever. They needed a plan to continue their journey safely, without drawing further attention or putting themselves in harm's way. Maria watched the rancher from across the room as he moved about the house, tending to chores and organizing supplies. He was a man used to authority, confident in the solitude of his home, but there was an air of unpredictability about him. Maria whispered to Anna, "We must be careful today. We cannot trust him completely, but we also cannot show fear too openly. We must act calm, obedient, and patient." Anna nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I know, Maria, but how do we find a way out without making him suspicious?" Maria thought for a moment. "We do what he asks, but we look for an opportunity. We need to gain his trust, at least enough to leave safely. Every step must be measured." The sisters helped with the morning chores, moving quietly through the house. They fed the chickens, collected eggs, and carried water from the well. The rancher observed them silently, occasionally giving instructions in a firm but not cruel voice. Each time he spoke, Maria and Anna carefully followed, their movements precise and deliberate. By midday, the rancher had grown somewhat accustomed to their presence. He even allowed them a few moments of rest in the shade, watching them carefully from a distance. The sisters used these moments to talk in whispers, sharing observations and strategies. They had noticed a small trail behind the barn that seemed to lead toward the edge of the property. If they could wait for the right moment, perhaps they could make a quiet escape. Lunch was a quiet affair. The rancher sat at the wooden table, eating his bread and dried meat, while Maria and Anna took small portions, careful not to draw attention. Conversation was minimal, filled with polite nods and careful glances. The sisters were learning quickly. Survival was not only about strength, but also about reading people, anticipating reactions, and staying composed under pressure. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Maria and Anna began to notice small signs that the rancher trusted them slightly more. He left the barn door open while he worked with the animals and spoke to them in a softer tone than before. It was not much, but it was enough to give the sisters hope. They needed that trust, even if only for a few more hours, to make their escape. Finally, when the rancher stepped away to check on the distant cattle, Maria whispered to Anna, "This is our chance. Stay close, move quietly, and do exactly as we planned." Anna's eyes widened with nervous anticipation, but she nodded, placing her hand in her sister's. Together, they slipped through the barn and onto the hidden trail they had observed earlier. The desert outside was vast and open, the sun beating down on them, but it also offered freedom. Maria led the way, carefully guiding Anna along the path that wound through low bushes and rocky terrain. Every step was measured, every sound carefully listened to. They could hear the faint calls of birds in the distance and the whisper of the wind through the dry grasses, but nothing else. No shouts, no footsteps, just the quiet promise of escape. After what felt like hours, the sisters reached the edge of the rancher's property. They paused to catch their breath, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. The trail ahead led into a narrow canyon, shaded and less exposed. Maria studied the terrain. "This will take us closer to the river," she whispered. "If we can reach the water, we can rest and plan our next move." The sisters moved carefully through the canyon, the walls of rock providing some protection from the sun. They climbed over small boulders, ducked under thorny bushes, and avoided loose stones that might give away their presence. Despite the fear that still lingered, there was a sense of exhilaration in their escape, a reminder of their own strength, intelligence, and courage. As evening approached, the sisters finally reached a small stream. The sound of flowing water was like music to their ears, a promise of life and safety. They knelt by the stream, cupping water in their hands to drink, and splashed cool water on their faces. For the first time in days, they allowed themselves a moment of relief and quiet celebration. "Maria," Anna said softly, "we did it. We're safe, at least for now." Maria smiled, though her eyes remained watchful. "Yes, for now. But we must keep moving. The desert is vast and there are always dangers ahead. We must not grow careless." Night fell over the canyon, bringing with it a cool breeze and a blanket of stars. The sisters set up a small camp by the stream, using rocks to build a low shelter and gathering dry wood for a fire. The crackling flames provided warmth and comfort, and the sisters shared stories of their village, their family, and dreams for the future. It was a rare moment of peace, and they savored it fully. Despite the calm, Maria kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. She knew that the desert could be unpredictable, and that human threats were not the only dangers. Coyotes prowled at night, and the terrain itself could be treacherous. Every sound and shadow was noted, every instinct sharpened. The sisters' conversation turned to the future. "We must reach the larger settlement by the river," Maria said. "There we can find people we can trust and gather food for the next part of our journey. We can plan carefully, and we will not face this alone." Anna nodded, her expression serious but determined. "I am ready, Maria. We will face whatever comes together." The next morning they broke camp early, the sunrise painting the canyon walls in shades of pink and gold. The sisters traveled lightly, carrying only essential supplies, their minds focused on the path ahead. They navigated through the rugged terrain with skill, avoiding open areas where they might be seen, and keeping close to the edges where shadows offered cover. As they moved through the desert, they encountered signs of other travelers, footprints in the sand, remnants of campsites and discarded items. Each discovery reminded them of the wider world beyond their immediate danger. It was a world that could be kind or cruel, filled with opportunities and threats alike. Maria and Anna understood that survival required not only courage but also careful observation, patience, and clever thinking. By late afternoon, they reached a small grove of trees that provided shade and shelter. Here they rested and replenished their water supply, taking a moment to reflect on their journey. The memory of the ranch lingered in their minds, the fear, the tension, and the quick thinking that had allowed them to escape. It was a lesson they would carry forever. Courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most dangerous situations. As night fell, they set up a new camp, keeping the fire small to avoid attracting attention. The stars above the desert were bright, a reminder of the vastness of the world and the journey still ahead. Maria and Anna shared a quiet moment, holding hands and drawing strength from their bond as sisters. They had faced fear together, and that bond had become their greatest weapon. In the days that followed, the sisters continued their journey, traveling by day when the sun was not too harsh and resting by night in hidden valleys or near streams. Each day brought new challenges, rough terrain, scarcity of water, and the constant need to remain alert, but also moments of beauty, connection, and hope. Maria and Anna's journey was more than just a physical escape. It was a test of character, endurance, and resilience. They had faced fear, navigated danger, and learned to trust their instincts. Each step forward strengthened their confidence and deepened their understanding of the world and themselves. Finally, after many days of careful travel, they reached a larger settlement near the river. The sight of other people, families, and the bustle of life filled them with relief and a sense of accomplishment. They had made it through the desert, overcoming both natural and human threats, and now had the opportunity to rest, gather supplies, and plan the next chapter of their lives. Though the memory of the ranch and the fear they had faced lingered, it no longer controlled them. Maria and Anna had proven to themselves that they could survive, adapt, and overcome. Their courage, resourcefulness, and unwavering bond as sisters had guided them safely through one of the most difficult experiences of their lives. As they settled into the safety of the settlement, the sisters looked toward the future with hope. The desert behind them had tested their limits, but it had also revealed their strength. And together, Maria and Anna knew they could face whatever challenges awaited, drawing courage from each other and the knowledge that they had survived the impossible.